Hello, good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you guys are. Welcome to Modeling with Teacher, which is something that I'm starting to do now, just to get you guys more interested in the modeling aspect. And, well, frankly, it's an opportunity to just speak my mind whilst I'm doing something functional and whilst, you have something to look at if you're interested in it. What we're making today, we are making Space Wolf Aggressors. And they are super cool things, and they are one of the best things in the Primaris army lineup, particularly for Space Wolves and not really much for Raven Guard anymore, but definitely for Space Wolves. With the Hunters Unleashed rules, these guys can pop in on one table edge and unload an unholy amount of firepower to someone before maybe getting off a lucky 9-inch charge if you can make it. But these guys here, they are very good at shooting stuff as in hordes and very good at punching things which are tough. So that's what we're making. Any Space Wolf army should include at least one unit of these guys. These are your Wolf Guard equivalent. I mean, these should replace your Terminators. They're just that good. And they're fast. White Scars really love these guys as well. But let's just kind of move on from that. So what we're looking at today is making these Aggressors, and well, I could just go through on how you can use these guys. If there's any sort of quiet patches in this, just wait for a few minutes until I reset my brain. So what are we looking for? We're looking for making the pack leader right now. So looking for 99. Where are we? There you go. Alright, so yeah, Aggressor units, fantastic guys. They are fairly mobile, because they can advance every turn and they don't suffer any penalties to their shooting with assault weapons. That rule really only matters for the bolter armed version of these guys, as you've got here. The flamer version ones don't really care about that because flame weapons always hit, so it doesn't matter that much. But very useful rule for the auto bolt versions, and frankly, those are the ones you should be fielding. Unless you have a very specific use, or your salamanders, then the... Oh, 1 second. That's not the right head. Interesting. Unless you're fielding flamer units, specifically because you're using salamanders, or you've got a particular use for it, then you're better off going with the bolter ones, just in terms of raw points cost and things. Alright. Okay, so Space Wolf guy, that's why we're going for, 1 second, the good head there, no helmet. So, there you go. That said, if you've got no plans to move them around at the tabletop for this turn, actually just keeping them still is a really good way to increase their firepower. They have a special rule which means that they can double their shots. Or fire twice, really, I should say. Fire twice if they don't move. I think, just off the top of my head, that comes out to being about 54 hits on target, something ridiculous like that from the unit of 3. And it's just an astounding amount of firepower, just really crazy amounts. You can just, well, get rid of whole hordes of orcs around. So, very good shooting, either if they're moving or they're stationary, so they're fast. Reasonably tough, I mean, 3+ armor save as you'd expect from Space Marines, but toughness 5, which is fairly good actually. I mean, you edge out an awful lot of stuff that way around. No benefit versus las guns, but certainly against bolsters and things like that. And also some benefit against pulse rifles. It's kind of in that Goldilocks zone where slightly tougher than usual, but not paying too much in terms of points cost for it. Where the heck is 36? Ah, there you go. So, rather good. Okay. Pro tip here, if you want to do this stuff quickly. First of all, don't talk when you're doing it, which is not an option for me now. Second of all, make little piles of bits for the stages you're doing, and then glue it all up later. Sometimes that works out best. 30 seconds. Sometimes it works out best. Sometimes you do end up waiting for things to dry in between each stage, but you know, usually this way is quickest. Plus you can have a little bit of fun modelling around with it whilst the glue dries. Clip. Clip. And clip. Raven Guard used to really love these guys because the aggressors could just pick a point on the battlefield 18 inches away from the enemy and start there, which means that you could pick a unit and then just plant your aggressors there, and they can just lather it with bolter shots. Not so much anymore. The new beta rules that are coming out means that the Raven Guard have really only got like a scout move on that kind of thing now. That was 38. Good. So not as good as it used to be. Still pretty good. I mean, 6 inches of movement. Well, 5 inches actually. Sorry. 5 inches of movement plus 18, you got a reasonable shot at getting something in second turn, or third turn really. Space Wolves though, as far as I know, still can plonk these guys on a table edge anywhere. At least on the second turn, so yeah, not so good anymore. Right, 39, nope, 103, not 103. 103 for the shiny base plate instead of the regular one. Where are you? There you go. So reasonably good in that regard. Melee-wise, Space Wolves are great for these guys. Space Wolf sort of chaps tactic is the Hunters Unleashed rule. Yeah, Hunters Unleashed rule. I think I've mistakenly named the stratagem they use for outflanking, which should just be outflanking, but there you go. So the Hunters Unleashed rule. When they charge or are charged, they get +1 to hit. And this is one of the few units in the Space Wolf lineup that really likes that. Because the power of this, it's -1 to hit, which means you're missing half the time, or hitting half the time if you're glass half core kind of person. But with Space Wolves, it basically nullifies that and makes them normal weapons skill again, which is quite a significant boost. Other close combat guys that like these units, Blood Angels, always need to mention, because you can just rock up to a, well, in many cases, things like a Imperial Knight and just slam it on 4s and things like that. So, yeah, fairly good. Black Templars, love these guys as well. Of course, they get to reroll their charges when they are trying to get into combat. I think the Space Wolf one is a bit more flexible for these ones though. As I said, you should always consider these guys for Space Wolf armies. They are just the bee's knees when they're compared with all the chap stats and things. 102 and 43. That's 43. There we go. 43. So yes, always consider these guys. The power fists are good for punching tanks and punching big monsters, not so good for punching hordes. So bear that in mind. You want to shoot the hordes, punch the big scary stuff. Makes it a really flexible unit. And so, you know, you have a nice little bubble around them actually. The big stuff doesn't want to get near them because it can punch them to death if they get the charge on. And the little stuff, the scraggly hordes and things, don't want to get near them either because you've got a little 18 zone of death around it if it decides to stick around and shoot. Space Wolves are even better in that regard because if they get charged, then they can just hammer people in close combat. So they're very good at maintaining little areas around of board control around them. Good for being defensive, good for being aggressive, basically just good in general. Any Space Marine army would do well to include these guys in. In fact, the only thing that makes these guys even harder is just objective secured of some form. If these guys had objective secured, you would not need any other unit in your army. You just stick with these guys. And they're cheap for what they do. So expect them to get a price hike at some point. Really do. Where are we? 54, 55. There we go. What else to say about the aggressors though? Other than that, they are awesome. You can actually pick up some easy to build ones of these, which are the flame versions, and they will do fine. They're still quite scary for horde armies, but they're nowhere near as flexible as the bolter versions, which is probably why the bolter versions are the ones you have to buy the full kit for. I can't stress how much I like these guys actually, they're really, really good. Essentially, the aggressors paired up with hellblasters gives you most of the options you need. You don't actually need much else apart from those two guys. You've got a scary close combat unit and horde destroyer, and then with the hellblasters, the guys with the plasma guns, you've got a general purpose tank killer or elite infantry muncher. So, you know, they're fairly good on their own. The only downside to that is that they are multi-role, so you need to keep in mind that if you're going to be using multi-role units, you should really double them up. That way you don't lose capability. It's a false idea of efficiency. Where you have a unit like these guys which can do punching big heavy stuff and also shooting up hordes. And because of that you think, okay, I'm just going to take these guys, I'm not going to consider that. And that's those two boxes checked for killing tanks and also killing hordes, and then I can get something else which doesn't do anything, well, just basically my preference and choice. Absolutely fine to do it that way, but if you lose this unit, then you've lost the capability in two areas. So ideally, you take this guy and pair it up with another unit of the same type, so double the unit up. And that way, if you lose one, you still have the capability. Flexible units are fantastic. They're really, really great because it means that it doesn't matter too much where you put them on the battlefield. They're still going to be effective. But just be careful. Don't just say I can take those two and they'll be fine. I'll take that unit and be fine. Take two of them just in case it gets wiped in the first turn and you've lost all that capability. Right, I'm going to glue these things together now and I'll catch you in the next video.
This